This segment of Delmarva Life is brought to you by Peninsula Regional Medical Center.
We're focusing on matters of the heart this week leading up to Valentine's Day. We talked about heart disease yesterday and how it hurts our heart health. But here's something that you might have never thought could have an adverse effect: your attitude.
Sure, it's no secret that having a positive attitude can have a positive effect on your mood, but studies suggest it may go deeper than that.
It doesn't matter who you are or what stage of life you are in. Researchers say that staying optimistic may be optimal for your heart health. When it comes to heart health, it pays to be happy. New research out of Harvard finds optimists are less likely to have heart attacks, heart disease, or strokes. Scientists reviewed more than 200 studies and found that factors such as optimism and life satisfaction could offer protection against cardiovascular disease. And it held true regardless of a person's age, education, weight, or family history of heart disease. Those who were the most optimistic had about a 50% reduced risk of having heart attack or stroke compared to those who were less satisfied with their lives. Scientists don't know all of the reasons why optimists have healthier hearts, but they suggest that part of it has to do with better handling of stress. People with a positive outlook were also more likely to live a healthier lifestyle, to exercise, eat a healthy diet, and to get the proper amount of sleep. Scientists know that depression and using negative emotions such as hostility, anger, and anxiety to deal with issues or suffering can be harmful to the heart. The researchers hope their findings can be used as an intervention strategy to give doctors another tool in the battle against heart disease. So we know that staying happy and being optimistic are best for our heart, but let's dig a little deeper into how our personalities play a role.
For instance, I consider myself a type A personality. I'm competitive and ambitious. I'm all about time management, and sometimes I take on a little more than I can handle. Yeah, you're laughing here. And when everything isn't lined up, I can get a little stressed out.
And of course, Lisa, that's not good for your heart either. So joining us today to tell us more is Jeanie Ruff, who's the Executive Director of the Grary Heart and Vascular Institute at PRMC. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So there really is a direct correlation between heart health and personality.
Well, we tended to believe that this type A personality was really a precursor for coronary artery disease, but with a large meta-analysis and research, we find that it's really not as strong a correlator as we once thought. But what we do know is that after having gone through open heart surgery, a cardiac intervention, or having had a heart attack, oftentimes depression does tend to present. And it's very important for us as caregivers and clinicians to be very mindful of that with the patients that we're working with, to reassure them, to make sure that they're aware of this so that we can provide them the help that they need. It's kind of a common side effect of the reality of, wow, it's my heart, and what does this mean for the rest of my life?
Right.
But Lisa, for you to change from your type A personality to become a type B would cause you a lot more stress than anything else. So stay the way you are.
Yeah,
okay?
you're right about that. Okay, so just so I get this straight, so when things don't go the way my personality wants them to, the end result can be stress. What does that do to my heart?
Well, actually, what ends up happening is what's called a fight or flight response, where it's a natural bodily tendency for our bodies to prepare for a stressor or a threat. And so there's a cascade of hormones that further secrete catecholamines, such as epinephrine and norepinephrine. And what this all does is prepare our bodies to either fight the stressor or flee from that stressor. And so what that ends up happening is that your heart rate goes up, your respiratory rate goes up, your blood clotting time goes up, the blood is deferred to the muscles so that you're physically ready to take on those stressors. Now that really did have a role back in like caveman days, where the biggest stressor a person had was to run away from a life-threatening animal of some kind. But in today's society, our stressors are more civilized. It comes down to either sitting in traffic or having that difficult conversation with your boss and knowing that it's not going the way that you want it to do. And so that natural physiological response still takes place, but we tend to internalize it. And
I was going to say, you're talking about the kinds of stress we face these days. A lot of times we tend to go towards unhealthy behaviors when we face that.
absolutely. And so what that can end up doing is that you can have that aggressive tendency. You may want to smoke more. You may want to drink more, binge eat, just have all of these unhealthy habits, which then further complicate and lead to other risk factors to coronary artery disease. So it's somewhat of a vicious circle that we need to be mindful of those stressors, more importantly, how we respond to those stressors, but then realizing we have to have a balance some way, or at least come back to that baseline.
So you're saying focus on healthy habits. What are some of those?
Absolutely. So certainly physical exercise is a very healthy choice because it's a natural, healthy alternative to work through that natural stress response. Going through deep breathing exercises, yoga, retraining that mind-body connection is so important.
Talk with family and friends.
That healthy connection with people close to you to verbalize those thoughts make all the difference in the world.
How about that? Well, what about the people who seek
thrills?
Thrills. There's no other way to put it as a way of dealing with stress.
Well, that may be just their personality, that they like that adrenaline rush, but I would think that eventually they have to come back to that nice homeostasis or that baseline. They aren't like doing roller coasters 8 hours a day, but then maybe they are, but they still have a relaxation phase in there somewhere. So it's a healthy balance. If you go too far off the end, that's not going to be healthy, but realizing that you have that personality and knowing how to best management is really the important element.
Jeanie Ruff, Director of the Guerrero Heart Center at
Thank
PRMC.
you.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks.
And if you'd like to read more from PRMC about heart health, go to WBOC.com and click on our picture at the top of the page. Well, for many of us, our hearts flutter come Valentine's Day, but for others, not so much. In fact, the holiday can be downright depressing. Up next on Delmarva Life, we take a look at why it happens and how it can be prevented.
Well, hopefully you're not binge watching Delmarva Life right now, because studies show that can be bad for your health too. You're going to find out what condition TV binge watching is being blamed on.
And we're blaming Stryker if we guess wrong in today's search for Stryker. Let's see how well his clues are today. Sean, we're ready for clue number 1.
Well, we're going to get things kicked off with our tie to Black history. This town is home to the only African-American one-room schoolhouse in its county to retain its original integrity. If that doesn't help you out, it's okay. I have 2 more clues coming up. Delmarva Life, we'll be right back.